One of the cases that has been held in the Supreme Court this week is a case in Maryland where parents took their local school district to court over them basically forcing kids to have to sit through LGBT books that were against their religious preferences. So this wasn't just Christians, this was also Muslims that were fighting back about these books that both groups say were not what they wanted for their kids to learn in school. And this isn't even oh, we're learning about sexuality. No, this is being used in English classes for young school children. We're talking around kindergarten to third grade. These are the types of books. And Neil Gorsuch has an interesting exchange, and it highlights everything. Now, Neil Gorsuch got one part wrong, but it does make you think about what's actually in these books. So, let's let you hear this exchange. Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
They offend religious beliefs do not qualify as a burden for free exercise purposes.
Thank you.
Justice Gorsuch?
I just want to make sure I understand a few fact things and then a law question. What age do you, in Montgomery County, teach students normally about human sexuality?
I think that it begins in either fourth or fifth grade.
The human sexuality class
The family life and human sexuality curriculum.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure.
starts in fourth or fifth grade, you
I think so.
Is there anything you can point us to in the record on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And second, these books are being used in English class.
The division between English class and other things in a second grade classroom doesn't really exist. You're sort of in a room with a teacher and sometimes
No,
they're
I
learning-
appreciate that. I went to second grade too.
Yeah.
But it's part of the English curriculum that these books are being used in. I thought that was.
Yeah, I'm not fighting the premise. I'm just saying that
It's not the
line-
math class.
It is not.
It's not the human sexuality class.
It is
it's the
certainly
English
not the
class.
human sexuality class. I'm just sort of fighting the premise that there's a neat distinction.
Okay, and they're being used in English language instruction at age 3. Some of them.
So Pride Puppy was the book that was used for the pre-kindergarten curriculum. That's no longer in the curriculum.
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's
right?
not bondage.
And
It's a woman in a leather.
sex worker, right?
No.
No?
That's not correct. No.
Gosh, I read it.
It's a drag queen and
Drag,
drag
drag queen and drag
Correct.
queen.
The leather that they're pointing to is a woman in a leather jacket, and one of the words is drag queen in the search.
And they're supposed to look for those.
It is an option at the end of the book, correct?
Yeah, okay. And you've included these in the English language curriculum rather than the human sexuality curriculum to influence students. Is that fair? That's what the district court found. Do you agree
I
with
think
that?
to the extent the district court found that it was to influence them towards civility. The natural consequence of being exposed
Whatever, but to influence them.
in the manner that I just mentioned, yes.
Okay. And responding to parents who are concerned, do you agree that there was some intemperate language used?
I don't know that those were responding to parents who were concerned. This was after the fact for most of these comments. And this was in a very public setting, which obviously got heated, and some intemperate comments were used, certainly.
Yeah. And I wanted to understand your context that you were giving about the statement that some Muslim families, it's unfortunate that this issue puts some Muslim families on the same side of an issue as white supremacists and outright bigots. I think in response to Justice Sotomayor, you were trying to give some context to that?
I don't think I was speaking directly about that comment. I think that comment was given or was made in June, which was several months after the decision to withdraw the opt-outs was made. I don't have context for that statement, no.
Okay. And then the legal question. Why isn't discrimination against religion a burden on religion? If a state, now this is hypothetical, not moving away from the record, if state actors intentionally discriminate against religion, what secular purpose, valid secular purpose could that serve? And how wouldn't that be a burden?
So I don't know, I mean, it depends on the hypothetical, what the state is doing and whether there's a secular purpose. That's hard to imagine one. But if the state is discriminating
Against Muslims or Catholics or Protestants or whatever.
I think this court has recognized that when an enactment that discriminates on its face, or has recognized with respect to an enactment that discriminates on its face, it is intrinsically coercive. That's how the court has performed the burden inquiry. If you are privileging one religion over another, you are coercing people to subscribe to that particular set of beliefs in order to get...
So that's a burden?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Justice Kavanaugh?
Now, if you're a parent, it's up to you to decide how you want to deal with this. I'm not necessarily in favor of book bans. I'm in favor of parents should have the right to say what their children's curriculum is. And if parents are not wanting their kids to learn this stuff, then they should have the right to say, hey, I don't want my kids being read to from a book such as this. I will leave it up to you on whether you want your kids to learn that. That's not my say on what your kids learn. But when there are parents that are saying we want to be able to opt out, and at first they were allowing this in this Maryland school district, and then they all of a sudden said, no, there's too many kids that are leaving the classroom and it's causing too much of a burden. Well, perhaps you need to quit teaching that because you're not teaching what the parents want you to teach. This isn't a case of, oh, we don't want to have to spend that much money on a calculator or something like that. This is books. This is learning how to read, and you're using it as a political forum for children who are too young to understand that difference. This is, not something that should be done. And you're talking about a less than 1% part of the population that's actually affected by all this, but you have so many more that aren't part of that community that seem to think, oh, let's push this ideology on people. Just like I don't think you should necessarily be pushing a religious worldview on children. I don't think you should be pushing a sexuality worldview on people. And that's what was going on here. And Gorsuch points it out. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.